Hey everybody, it is Lauren deLisa Coleman back again, another episode of the Inside series for Film.io. Get ready because we've got a really special interview coming up right now with a filmmaker whose name is James Gannon. He has a very intriguing documentary in the festival this year for Sundance, and I can't wait to get all into it with him. He's right in Brooklyn, so this is kind of right in my backyard after we've been to a number of different countries around the world and different cities in our own country. But hey, James, thanks for joining us right from Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. I am excited to have you. When I saw this, at first I was like, wait, what? And then, you get into it and you just really can't believe it. So James is the filmmaker behind a film called Deerwoods Death Trap. And I'm going to kick it off as usual by asking him to give us a synopsis. And then I can't wait to hear more of how this story just kind of came to you.
Yeah, the synopsis is it's about two people who were hit by a train in 1971 and survived, and 50 years later try to kind of recount the incident and have conflicting memories about it.
It's really just fascinating. Again, as all of my wonderful viewers know, I live for investigation Discovery Channel, all these true crime things. And so it is fascinating to see, how you set this up and how it starts out kind of in that same vein where, people are telling the story, and it's just amazing how one will be like, no, I had the music on. Oh, no, I definitely didn't have the radio on in the car. Oh, no, I definitely did and stuff. But the way they are recounting is so kind of calm, almost as if they were watching themselves rather than the fact that they, kind of went through all this. So how did, all this kind of get started? Or rather, how did you enter the picture when you did in order to be able to create this film?
So I'm not sure if you picked up on it. Some people do, some people don't. But those are my parents, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they're my parents.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was
kind of just like, what did he do here about this or whatever? And it's kind of not clear in the press notes and stuff, which I like that, actually.
Yeah, I felt like their story was, good regardless of the fact that I'm,
You happen to be related to them?
Yeah. So, I kind of felt like, oh, it's a non-factor. And I didn't really, put that in the movie at all.
Right.
But, if you see the credits and just happen to pay attention to the last names, you'll kind of put it together.
You know what? It is true. I think I was just so caught up in the story that I didn't really make the connection. And a lot of times, when you have a documentary where somebody who I'm going to interview, later on today, it's, about her father, and this from the outset, and it's not something that's massively kind of traumatic like that. So you just kind of, think already this is just a general story for which the filmmaker is objective, but just so crazy. So What was it like, I guess, first of all, shooting your parents? Is that kind of, challenging? Were they able to take direction well, or were they trying to be, parents and kind of giving you their perspective, or what?
Yeah, so I grew up hearing this story my whole life. My dad loves to tell stories and, likes to give all the details and embellish. And there's a bunch of stories, but this one kind of always stuck out. They were hit by a train and survived.
Yeah, it's not like an everyday thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So...
And live to tell about it. And they're fine.
Right. Yeah. And most of those other stories too, there's no sort of artifact from it. It's just a story. But, with this one, I grew up seeing those slides and those little pictures of my dad's face all messed up. And, there was always sort of this visual to it that I could look at as well. So I had been kind of thinking about doing it, making this short, and I had actually directed my parents in 3 other shorts before this. I had a documentary 2 years ago called Betty Feeds the Animals that's all about my mom that was also shot on Super 8 and, it was in Slam Dance and a couple other festivals. So after that one kind of did well, my dad's not in that at all. I was sort of like, oh, I need to make something with my dad in it. I could tell that he wanted to kind of be involved, and the train movie kind of always stuck out, or the train story. So I decided like this would be the one. And initially, you know, I thought it was just going to be my dad the whole time. Like Betty Feeds the Animals is just my mom. So I thought this would kind of be my dad's thing. I kind of grew up with him telling the story more than ever hearing my mom tell it. But then when we were filming, I sort of decided to like torpedo a scene and throw her in there and see what happens. And their banter just kind of came out. And I realized that I had to continue putting them in scenes together to get that banter.
You are creating, you know, like a celebrity family, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to come next? So now what do they think about it?
They love it. Yeah, they really like it. My dad, it's funny because my mom sort of saw how the process worked with the previous short. And my dad filming him, I don't think he really knew where this was going. He questioned like a lot of, you know, questions I was asking him or directions I was going. And, you know, he kind of tried to add certain ideas into it that I was like, no, stop talking about that. Like, that's not going to be in the movie. Just like, and you know, I'm shooting film, so every minute costs money and it's Super 8. So I only have 2.5 minutes before I have to pop in another reel. So it was sort of, the only thing that was difficult is kind of honing in their answers to get the bites that I needed and what I knew I would use while also saving money. But eventually I just kind of, I stopped trying to save money and was just like, I'm just going to buy 60 rolls of Super 8 and just keep on just throwing them in. I'm just going to let them do like their, you know, long-winded, verbose answers. And I'll find, you know, I'll know when I have what I need, and then I'll find it in the edit.
Oh my gosh, too funny.
Yeah.
So a couple of different things about that. First of all, well, why did you select Super 8? It's funny because I was talking with another filmmaker yesterday, and he was just talking about how he went for a 16 millimeter because he wanted a particular look, and it was dealing with the 70s, etc. So I'm always just fascinated about, you know, kind of which format filmmakers kind of gravitate to tell a particular story. Did you use Super 8 for Betty Feeds the Animals?
I did. Yeah.
You did. Okay. So it was just like, that's just like the weapon of choice for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's like a million reasons I could give, like, oh, you know, it's nostalgic, or, you know, it feels more special to me because, you know, it's not digital. It feels like less disposable, or, you know, a million things. But really the heart of it is just, I just kind of love the aesthetic of Super 8. And I think it's like a really weird and bold choice to use it for a documentary. And that just kind of makes me like it more. Like, I want to continue to make these things on Super 8 or 16 if, you know, I get the chance. But I just know if I saw this movie on digital, it wouldn't feel the same. It wouldn't be the same thing. You know, that look, that like the way it has like
the gritty kind of vibe. You have to have that to kind of feel like you're in the story as you're watching it.
Yeah, right off the bat, it just kind of makes you want to pay attention more because you know.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure
is it challenging?
cheating, but...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if that's like cheating, tricking the viewer into continue to watch it, but I mean, I love the aesthetic.
Hey, you got to use what you have, right, James? Yeah. But is it hard though when you know a story so well like this? It's a family story. As you said, you've heard it a million times. If your parents are anything like my mom, you know, the story is going to be told like you can't even count, you know, the number of times you've heard it. So is it hard to kind of step back and be like, okay, well, obviously everyone who sees this is not going to come to it with the knowledge that I do. Oh, I forgot, like, you know, we need to add that part, or maybe that part should be explained a little bit more or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because since you know something so well, sometimes it's hard to look at it with a fresh eye and make certain that you have all the details that somebody like myself looking at it for the first time would have. Did you find yourself having to go back in edits, or did you just know really from the beginning, this is exactly what I'm going to want and need, and set it up that way?
You know, I mean, I thought I knew what I needed in the beginning, and I had a plan. And I know that my dad is used to telling this story, but he's used to telling it to strangers, and he has kind of like a set way of telling it. So I know he gets in all of the details. So what I did was I actually filmed him without any Super 8, just doing like the interview, just for the audio. And we got like an hour and a half of that where I was just like, be as detailed as possible. And he was. And then I had him do it again in a more like, you know, succinct way. And then we went to the location where the accident happened, and I shot 10 rolls of film And I had a plan to come back a couple months later and shoot some more, and then COVID hit. And my parents are old, they're 80 right now. So I couldn't do anything for like a year and a half. So I just had 10 rolls without any sort of like a lot of the footage I actually needed. I just had this one sort of interview at the train tracks, and I gave it to my editor, and he started to kind of put together an assembly. I took his assembly and I downloaded weird stock footage, which is something I've never done before. And I started kind of trying to put together like what are the other elements I need to film. And through him and myself, we figured out like what are the things that are missing. What, for him hearing it for the first time, he definitely had some questions, which helped me figure out the things that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah.
So then we went back, I guess it was last May, and I shot for like 5 days of just like asking different questions and, with notes and getting all the B-roll that I needed.
Just amazing. So tell me about the Sundance process and what your parents / superstars thought about the fact that this film was going to be included this year. Well, are they familiar with Sundance, or maybe is that not their in their or on their kind of radar at that age and not being in the industry? Do they realize the level of prestige, or it's just like anything James does is great? We don't, you know what I mean?
I mean, it's a little both. Like, I submitted to Sundance, and I've submitted multiple films to Sundance over like 10 years, and I've never gotten in. Yeah. And I always just kind of, it's not an easy thing to get into. And, I just sort of in my mind resigned to like, well, I just need to pay to get the rejection letter. Like, I just need to know, so it was always a thing where like, no matter what I make, I'm always going to submit to Sundance. And I always told other people that as well, who were like, I don't think I'm going to submit. I'm not going to get in. I was like, well, I'd rather know. So I always submitted. And, I've gotten into other festivals like South by and Slam Dance, but it was never Sundance. And, it's like winning a lottery. I didn't really expect it to happen for me. So then when it did happen, I called my dad, and he knew what it was. He was very excited and like super surprised.
Well, because I guess if you said even if they didn't know about festivals or the festival circuit, if you said Robert Redford, that would make the connection for them in terms of the level of prestige.
Yeah, he knew Sundance. And then my mom, funny enough, we had Betty Feeds the Animals as Slam Dance in 2019. And I spent most of that time correcting her when she said, I'm in a movie at Sundance, to be like, no, it's Slam Dance. So then I had to tell her it was Sundance, and she's like, Slam Dance? And I was like, no, it was the other one going on. Remember the other one? And she was like, okay. Funny. Yeah, so I had to kind of like walk her back and, reinform her what the difference was between the two.
Hilarious. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love though as well that you said, you need to pay just to have that kind of peace of mind, like, pay to submit. Why do you think that that's important, for you, whether it's, to be admitted or not? I mean, obviously we all love recognition, but I just find it interesting that, you said that you always submit all of your films to whatever, kind of the whole slate that you probably have, in your mind, just so that that you've done the most you could to expose people to the film, or kind of, I'm just curious about that.
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to the first film I made in like 2009 that I submitted to kind of festivals blankly, and I didn't know anything about what was a good festival besides Sundance at that time, and I had this little short film. And I was submitting it to things, and I got into South by Southwest, and I didn't know that was a big deal. I was just like, oh, it's like another festival I got into, like these other like smaller festivals. And then I told other people, and they were like, that's like a big deal. And I was like, really? I didn't know that. And I think once that kind of set in, it sort of turned into like, you never know until you know. Like you have to submit to find out. And if you don't, then you're kind of, if you say I would have gotten into, Slam Dance this year, which I'm pretty sure Slam Dance doesn't take the same films as Sundance, but say I would have gotten into Slam Dance and I didn't submit to Sundance, in the back of my head, I would always think like, well, what if I would have submitted to Sundance? Would they have taken it? And then I just kind of have to live with this not knowing, which I can't do. That's not
interesting. Do your other like kind of filmmaker friends and colleagues think the same way, or have you guys had that discussion, or what?
I've had that discussion with people. people who have been in it for a while and haven't gotten into like a bigger festival tend to kind of get discouraged and don't want to submit to the bigger ones, because generally the bigger ones come with like a little bit of a higher submission fee. And I get that as well. It's easy to get discouraged, but I just sort of keep on saying what I was just saying now. Like, I'd rather pay to know. I'd rather pay for the rejection letter and know that they didn't take it than just kind of live with the mystery of it.
Interesting. So why do you think festivals are still so important today? I mean, I know that there's been, obviously, with the pandemic, a lot of discussion around how to reimagine them, how to be able to still have the property available digitally, but like also protect it, you know what I mean? And then still help the filmmaker get in front of distributors and all that. Going forward, do you think that festivals will hold the same kind of cachet, if you will, or do you see maybe digital platforms actually creating, I don't know, something that kind of gets rid of the quote-unquote middleman of the festival, or maybe the festival becomes even more essential when people have been apart for so long and need to come back together? I'd love to know what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope festivals continue to be important, just the same way that I hope, people going to the movie theater continues to be important. Like, I know that there's, streaming platforms to have, a million things at your fingertips. But sometimes it's hard to find the good stuff. And
so you think it's like all about the curation then?
That really about the curation, yeah. And I also think that, like, festivals are kind of, people are taking chances creatively when they're submitting something to a festival, and they don't have to, when they're not already on a streaming platform and have to listen to people who are maybe have ideas about the concept of their film to make it more accessible to the masses. You don't have that. This is festivals for people who are kind of making stuff on their own and taking chances and getting creative. And, we've seen that time and time again with film festivals, that these new voices come out that kind of change cinema forever, like Sundance taking Reservoir Dogs kind of changed everything forever. I don't know if that movie maybe would have gotten the attention that it would have gotten if there were streaming platforms that were maybe afraid that it was too violent, or, I'm being hypothetical, I have no idea, but I do think that festivals are important for highlighting new voices, and those new voices getting that attention where they can go into the cinema world and maybe kind of shake things up or change things.
I think that's a really great way to put it. So what's kind of next for you, James? I'm afraid of like what other family stories your family should be afraid of, what you're going to pull out next and, give to the world. No, just joking. But I mean, do you think that that's still kind of well there for you for storytelling, or are you going to do more, or who knows, family with other actors? I mean, anything could happen, right? In 2022. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a million stories I could go after with them. But it's funny. I never really got into filmmaking to make documentaries. It wasn't something I was kind of ever after. I wanted to do narrative stuff, and I've done a bunch of narrative stuff. And these documentaries are just sort of stories that, happen in front of me, and I don't think of the difference between documentary and narrative. I'm just like, if it's a good story, then it should be told. So it just happens that, I've made a couple docs, which is not what I was planning to do, but I love these docs, and I like taking a more like narrative, different approach with them. And going forward, I have a feature script right now that I'm shopping with, people at Sundance, anyone that I can talk to, that I'm trying to make, that would all be shot on 16 millimeter. It's out in the desert, set in like the early 80s. So I've got that script, which is completely ready to go. I just need the money and the talent.
Wow. Well, good luck with that, James, for sure. So you have any tips for any filmmakers watching or things like that before we wrap up, or anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, it's kind of like the same stuff that other people say. I think you just have to kind of keep on making stuff, and you're going to make stuff that you don't like, and that's okay, because that's kind of part of the learning process. I know that's what all the filmmakers say, but it's true. I've made like over 10 shorts at this point. And you just kind of got to keep going. If you have that creative itch and you feel like you need to make stuff, don't let anything get in your way. There's stories everywhere. I'm finding stories just from my family. So
Right.
they're out there. You just gotta kind of be open to it.
Very, very cool. So, before we go though, tell everybody how they can keep up with you, and who knows about the next family legacy or anything like that. What is it? Best via social, or do you have a dedicated website? What's the story?
Yeah, I have. I mean, my Instagram, I guess, is probably the thing that I'm most active on socially. Though, like, I've just kind of fallen off doing that many social things recently. But Instagram would probably be the best. And then I have a website, which is just jamespgannon.com, where I have a bunch of my films up there. They're also on Vimeo.
And is it James? Did you say like B as in boy or P as in Peter?
P as in Peter. Well, it's P as in Peter.
Okay. So James spelled the traditional way, you guys, and then P as in Peter, and then Gannon, Gannon. Yep. Is the Instagram the same thing?
My Instagram, I'm like so bad at remembering this. I think it's JP Gannon. I'm almost positive that's what it is.
We're going to have to get maybe your mom or somebody on the case to handle your Instagram feed.
Yeah.
That's what we might, turn over to her next.
Yeah.
Too funny. Well, I wish you much success during the festival. I hope that the film is well received. It's cool that, I think people will just have more time to be able to see, the films now that they're virtual.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that people would see more of them because, when you're there and it's great and it's exciting and, you're trudging around the snow, you have this event to go to that event, you plan to get to that film, but maybe that, theater was too far away or whatever. This time now, it's really almost solely focused on the actual, creative content. So you can't be like, I don't know, I just don't think I can take an Uber all the way out to, whatever. You can just boop, click, and then be like, okay, I'm watching this film. So I'm really excited to see how that goes, even for myself, because, there's the whole social aspect to it and business, and it is obviously very exciting to, be able to be with everybody and all the really amazing events and the setting and the skiing and everything. But It's also kind of cozy to be like, I have my cappuccino and I'm going to watch 3 films right now. Like, do you know what I mean? And I don't have to go anywhere or fight, to get over to the next street to get the Uber because this street is the wrong way. It's kind of like a little bit of like a respite. I think it's going to be, definitely an advantage for filmmakers. I think more films will be able to be seen and kind of concentrated on, when you're sitting there looking at them.
Especially the shorts, because the shorts, if you buy that Explorer pass that's like $50, you have the shorts for 10 days and you can watch whatever you want, which is huge. The features, you have like limited time windows, but you can just
watch. But even with that, like, it's not like, okay, it's maybe Monday at 8 a.m., which you're not going to do, or, Thursday at 9 p.m., but there's a cool event, and then you're like, okay, now what am I going to do? So, this should be very, very, I hope very supportive, for you guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to let you go, but thanks so much for the time. You guys, the film is Deerwoods Death Trap. James Gannon, thank you so much for watching, and we are just going to keep bringing you more of these wonderful interviews from filmmakers at this year's Sundance Film Festival. I am Lauren deLisa Coleman for the Inside series at film.io.